Working parents and carers of two-year-olds in England are now entitled to 15 hours of government-funded childcare per week. Well, we heard from the government earlier. Let's hear what Labour has to say on this. The Shadow Secretary, Minister without portfolio, Nick Thomas-Symonds, joins us now. Thank you so much for your time this morning. You have called these plans a pledge without a plan.
Yeah, so a pleasure to join you, first of all, Gareth, this morning. Yes, the issue here is that the government has set out a series of entitlements for working parents. Today marks, of course, phase one of that, with the 15 hours entitlement to funded hours for parents of all two-year-olds. The issue is, though, that hasn't been accompanied by a plan to actually make sure that that can be accessed in terms of capacity within the system. And indeed, far from actually putting forward a coherent plan, what the government has done on its watch is allowed the number of childcare places to be reduced between March and December last year by over 1,000, alongside a reduction in the number of providers. So to just announce an entitlement without actually the means by which all parents can access it who are entitled to is quite frankly a betrayal.
So you say that the Conservatives don't have a plan. What's yours?
So first of all, we stand by the promises on entitlements that have been made to working parents. If we are privileged enough to form a government, they will not be reduced. So
you will uphold the 15 hours of free childcare?
Well, this is obviously phase one of that. The various entitlements that have been promised, we will honour. The difference between the government and us is we will actually put forward a proper plan to deliver them. And to do that, we have commissioned Sir David Bell, very respected former inspector of Ofsted. He started that review for us in October. He will report to us as to how we need, in the system that we have, to make any changes. He'll make those recommendations to us so that we can actually be in a position not just to be setting out the entitlements as the government are doing, but also we will then put forward how we will make those a reality in the system. That's our commitment to working parents up and down the country, not the chaos that Conservatives have currently created.
So with respect, at the moment, you also do not have a plan?
Well, what we have done is to ask Sir David Bell, who's an expert in the field, very widely respected.
That's not a plan.
All across the early years sector. No, but it is actually taking a voice, an authoritative voice about this sector to get to a position when we are putting forward our manifesto, whenever the Prime Minister finally discovers the bottle to call an election. So we are in a position to put forward something that is deliverable. That is very different from the government's back of a fag packet approach, frankly, where they are simply setting out promises and entitlements and then disappointing many working parents up and down the country. We won't do that. We will actually listen to an expert in the field and put forward a credible plan for delivery, not just promises.
Sure. So you have a plan, you have a voice at the moment, the plan is to come. Talk to me about A&E, if you will. Shocking statistics on the front pages of many of the papers this morning. In England, upwards of 250 unnecessary deaths in A&E as a result of an issue of getting people out of A&E and into hospital beds. That's the situation under the Tories. How will you change it?
Well, look, reading that today is frankly shocking, and the government has been warned time and time again about the dangers of the position that there is in A&E as a consequence of lack of capacity across the National Health Service. Now, we've said that the National Health Service needs to be reformed. We need particularly to be looking at prevention, use of data, artificial intelligence, but also the National Health Service, in addition to that, does need an immediate cash injection. We stand by the pledges that we have made to make sure that we can get doctors and nurses working those additional hours to drive down waiting lists, to do things like increase the number of scanners. So it is about both that immediate injection of cash and longer term reform. But I think the government really does fail to understand the urgency of the situation it finds itself in A&E.
Would you end the impasse with junior doctors? And if so, how?
We've said frequently that we would be sitting down, negotiating, trying to prevent the continuation of these strikes. I can't tell you, obviously, because I'm not around the table, where precisely you would be able to find common ground. But too often with this government, they've either not been engaging to the extent that they should, or they've been passing things like the minimum service levels legislation, which is just aggressive and making the situation considerably worse. You know, before coming into politics, I was a mediator, I was a negotiator. I've seen the situation where you have to sit down, do those hard yards, hours and hours on end to find that compromise. That isn't what the government has been able to do, but that's what desperately needs to happen.
You must be a very happy man this morning if you've read the Sunday Times and these reports from a 15,000-person poll that you are on course to have a 268-seat majority. Do you recognise those figures?
Well, I've obviously seen the Sunday Times story as you have, Gareth, but we're confident, but we're certainly not complacent, because not a single vote has been cast in the general election yet. At the moment, we're of course fighting in mayoral and local elections on the 2nd of May. I've been out campaigning on that in recent weeks. I'll be doing so over the next few weeks as well. And rest assured, we will be fighting for every single vote in this general election. That's our commitment. We absolutely take nothing for granted.
We had the government on this morning. They wanted in part to tout the fact that the national living wage is rising up to £11.44, increasing from £10.42. At the same time, MPs' wages rising 5.5%, basic salary now £91,000 and a few extra pounds and pennies. Is that good value for money for the electorate?
Well, I certainly try to provide good value in the service that I provide to my constituents. You obviously have to ask other members of Parliament about that. But in terms of the government press release on the economy this morning, I thought it was detached from reality. It's a classic example of giving with one hand and taking away with the other. Prices continue to rise in the shops. People are paying the Tory mortgage penalty month after month after month after they come off fixed deals. We've got the tax burden at a record high since 1948. You've got energy prices higher than they need to be because the Conservatives have had in place what is in de facto a ban on onshore wind rather since 2015. So the Tories cannot run from their record. The truth is, after 14 years of the Conservatives, do people feel better off? People genuinely feel public services are better. And when I'm going around the country, the answer on the doorsteps to both those questions is no.
And we'll find the true answer to that in the general election when it happens. Nick Thomas-Symonds, for the moment, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.